You might call BS on this one, but this is, in fact, a true story. You ask any of my friends, and I've bought a lot of packs through the years. My man cave wall is full of them. 2016, I decided I needed to upgrade and get a higher end pack. So I was looking at 3 different brands, all 3 of them, very popular brands. And I settled on one. It worked out well for a few years. It wasn't until my buddy Jake killed a cow elk off the end of this ridge. The pack out shouldn't have been horrible. It wasn't too steep, and it wasn't too far. But I can tell you that pack that I had made it horrible. When I got back that winter, I went to the drawing board, and I started looking at other packs, and that's when I was looking at Kifaru. Now, I'm sure that's some of you going to call BS and just fast forward. That's fine. But I settled on a duplex light frame and a woodsman bag. Now, I paid full price, and I used that thing training hikes through the winter and into the spring. And my first trip was into the Frank Church for 8 days, and that pack was awesome. Really rode nice. The adjustability, you really get it dialed in. And, I talked to Frank and Aaron on occasions, getting it touched up, on fit earlier in the spring. So I was digging it. Well, that year, between myself and others, I ended up packing 5 animals out, and I was loving it. I mean, it really rides nice. But honestly, in my opinion, when you're getting upwards of 80 pounds, it all sucks. But this pack makes it suck less. So coming into 2019, I killed a pretty good-sized bull, and that was a steep pack. I mean, it was horrible steep. I'd since upgraded to a 44 mag bag, and on the second load out, I slid that hind quarter of the bull into that bag, cinched her down hard, and then was tying the horns on. And as I was reefing into that, Kenny Marquardt says to me, "What are you trying to do, break the thing?" And I said, "I'll guarantee you if I break it, Kifaru will take care of it." Because I would have loved to have called Aaron up and said, "Hey man, I broke your pack." But that ain't going to happen. That pack is physically heavier, quite a bit physically heavier than any pack I've ever had. But I'll tell you, I liken it to an old Dodge Power Wagon as opposed to a Nissan. You figure it out. So like I said, I've since got the 44 mag bag, and I have a striker bag as well. And the versatility that I have between those two systems is awesome. Between whitetail hunting and moving around my crappy old steel stands that everybody makes fun of to going into the Frank Church for a week, I don't see me needing anything for a while. Couple that with a company that has incredible customer service. Now, you might find the same customer service somewhere at a different company, but you ain't going to find better. The pack is made in America by a company that supports traditional archery. So I'm telling you, if you're looking for a pack, give Kifaru a hard look. Hey there. How's everybody doing this week? Kind of want to put last week behind us like we want to put 2020 behind us. Welcome to this week's episode of the Stick Bow Chronicles, brought to you by Blackwidow Bows. The wind was kind enough to blow in 270 degrees of the compass this morning to give me a chance to stay home and bang this episode out. What an episode it is. I'm not sure what possessed me to ask both of these ladies on at the same time, but it was a good move because I didn't realize they were friends at the time when I asked. But it was a hoot. It was a good time. And Melody, as you'll hear, being a new hunter, a new traditional bow hunter, basically a new hunter and a new traditional bow hunter. Her journey, her story, for me, really reminded me of what the struggles of learning things on your own. She's had a great mentor in Steph. as well as the Footed Shaft, sounds like, and Wisconsin Traditional Archers. So that's cool. But listening to her passion and the steepness of the learning curve kind of reminded me how fun it was. So in today's world, learning curves are pretty tight because there's so much information in the whole world, not just talking archery or hunting. But listening to her just reminded me of, what, a long sweeping curve is not all that bad. There's a lot of joy and satisfaction in figuring this stuff out. And then we got Steph. Holy smokes. She's a riot. She's been hunting a long time. And both of these ladies, when I think of, Wisconsin and Minnesota, these folks embody everything that it conjures up in my imagination. A lot of fun. We mentioned Wisconsin Traditional Archers in this episode. What a great bunch. I've actually had them on like a year ago or a year and a half ago, just kind of promoting the group. Great group, and you got Compton's Traditional Bowhunters out there. So for somebody like Melody, these groups are a great resource. So look to your state organization and Compton as well. I'd love to get back there. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. What a rich history in traditional bow hunting, traditional archery. Love to go back there sometime and shoot. That'd be fun. Also, in this episode, fortunately, it's right at the end, but Steph is on the phone and my phone dies. And at the time, I had no idea what happened. But when I was editing, apparently my phone was beeping, saying it was getting tired and it was quitting. So it's right at the end. She doesn't get a chance to say goodbye. And maybe that's for the better. Who knows how she would have signed off. So good stuff. What else we got going on? Let's see. Right now, what do you got? About 3 weeks left for the I Hunt Close Trad Kill 2020. Photos are still coming in. Peak of the Rut is happening in a lot of places, so I got to imagine we're going to have several more. Hopefully I can get it done. Like I said, I'd like to be out there now, but that wind can't even make up his mind. I know I've given you a lot of content over the last, 78 days or so. I think the first was on a Sunday or something. So we drop every Sunday at 5, or I guess it's now at the time change, it's 4 p.m. First Wednesday of the month is an Empty Quiver episode. So it's the third episode, second Sunday. If you're falling behind, take some time off work. Get caught up. Anyways, that's all I got. Big thanks to the sponsors. As always, Kifaru International, Ironwill Outfitters, The Footed Shaft, Selway Archery, of course, Blackwidow Bows. Got a great community. Stay after it. Keep in touch with us. And, that's all I got. Support those that support us. Enjoy. Melody, tell everybody who you are.
All right, well, I'm Melody Haege. I live in Minnesota. I have 5 kids. My oldest is going to be 10 here soon, and my youngest is 2.
Wow.
And I love hunting a little too much. I shoot my bow a lot, and but I'm new at everything. So this is my first hunting season.
And you must be a workhorse because you've got the kids. You're outside. You're homeschooling. You guys look like you're on the go a lot.
Yeah.
And who's the other one we got on the line? The troublemaker.
What?
Who's the other troublemaker we got on the line?
Stephanie Newman, but typically I go by Steph. I'm from Wisconsin, and no kids, just a dog, but she keeps me busy. I've been hunting since I was a kid, but archery I started around 10 years ago, and traditional archery about 6 years ago.
That's cool. Why'd you get into traditional archery?
So it was the first year that me and my fiance were dating, and I bought the Fred Bear DVDs, and we started watching them, and we were both just like fascinated with how he could just snap shoot and like taking aerials. And so he bought a Bear Super Grizzly, and then a month later we went to the Deer Classic in Madison, and Byron Ferguson was there, and he was selling longbows, and I talked to him for quite a while, and I ended up buying one of his bows. And we bought him just to mess around with, but that first summer we were shooting for hours every single day. And within like a month or two, I just realized I would never pick up a compound again, so I sold it and haven't touched one since.
We're over here nodding our heads. We can see each other. Your accent is awesome. Hey, so you met Byron Ferguson. You pick up a bow. And you start shooting it. What? How are you shooting? What are you using to learn? Or are you just gripping it and ripping it?
Well, so at the Deer Classic, Byron brought me into this little room where he could shoot, and he like hands me this 43-pound longbow, which my compound was 45, so like I could do the weight, but obviously holding all of the weight was a little different. And he sets me up with this bail, and he's like, just point at it and shoot. And my first arrow completely misses the bail and just hits the wall above it. And I was like, oh boy. But we would just go to this archery range near our house and just chucking arrows and just kind of figuring it out as we go. I learned to shoot 3 under, and I shoot with a bow like very vertical, like I don't cant at all. Where Steve, my fiance, he was split fingers right off the bat, and he cants like crazy. So we went very different directions from the beginning. But eventually he convinced me to learn split finger, and I've stuck with that since, and I just like it a lot more.
So you gap shooting?
I dabble with 3 under once in a while, but not, I guess kind of you'd categorize it as instinctive gap if you had to put a name on it. Growing up, I was right-eye dominant, and like 2 years ago, we noticed that I'm left-eye dominant now. So as I was shooting, I started squinting my left eye without even realizing it, and I didn't know it until a friend pointed out to me. And I think it's because that eye was kind of trying to take over, so I just started closing it. So I don't reference my point at all, but I use like basically the riser is kind of just like an out of focus sight window that I visually kind of know where I like it when I'm aiming, but I have no idea where my tip itself is. You know, I just kind of see the riser out of focus.
Huh. And how about you? How about you, Melody? How did you start shooting? What lit your fire?
Well, 5 years ago, my husband got me a Samick Sage recurve for Christmas, and I started shooting it, but it was probably more like every few weeks to a couple months I would shoot. It was a 35-pound Samick Sage, and it was fun, but it didn't get me like on fire about archery. Just do it occasionally. And then after some hunting misadventures, I decided I wanted to hunt with a stick bow or nothing. So
do you care to expound on the misadventures?
What?
Do you care to expound on the misadventures?
Well, okay, so I started hunting when I was 28, my first deer hunt ever. Like, I didn't grow up in hunting culture. My mom was a hunter, and my dad grew up in Chicago. So he didn't grow up hunting. My mom grew up in Minnesota and, went up north and hunted deer and everything she's a killer with a single shot 20 gauge. But, yeah, so hunting just wasn't something my family did. And so then when I was 28, I went on my first hunt with my husband and his family out in rural Wisconsin. And that first year I got 4 deer. And then
what?
Yeah.
I live in the wrong part of the country.
You can get all these bonus tags. And I was like sitting there, and every time I'd see a deer, I'd text my husband and be like, should I shoot it? And he's like, yeah, if it's brown, it's down. It's your first year. It's like after that, you've got to be picky. But first year, you can just take it. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. So filled up the freezer with a bunch of little deer. I didn't know the difference between a big deer and a little deer at that point. And then the next year, I got another really nice one. And then the next year I got a buck at 120 something yards and I shot it in the heart. It kicked and then it dropped like 5-10 feet later. Like it didn't even go. And I saw through the scope, I could see this giant, tines and rack and everything. And then when I got to it, it was like the most demoralizing thing. It was a half rack, and one side was a fork, and the other side was 5 tall, beautiful tines. And I was like, I was so far away from this deer when I shot it that I didn't even notice that it had a half rack. I was super frustrated because I was like, I realized like I'm not a good hunter. I don't know anything about hunting. I just know how to shoot. And so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to actually hunt, not just shoot. And so I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? Well, I live in Wisconsin. I'm gonna get a crossbow. So I started hunting with a crossbow. And my first time going out with a crossbow, I sent a picture of this deer to Steph today. First time sitting with a crossbow. An 8-point buck comes in. I didn't realize that when I went out on November 4th, I didn't know that it was the rut. I just go like stomping through the woods and go climb up in a deer stand, and all of a sudden this buck comes charging in at me, like, and then all of a sudden I didn't know about scent control either, but just like stops dead when it gets my scent. And like in retrospect, I play this back and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It smelled me. That's why it stopped right there, and then that's why it was licking its nose and trying to figure all this stuff out about me. But anyway, I like pick up the crossbow. So when I went crossbow hunting, it was actually my husband's crossbow, and I like practiced a couple shots, and I was like, they're in the bullseye, so I'm ready to hunt, right? So I went out after 3 shots, all of 3 shots on a crossbow, and I shoot at this deer, and I miss it high because I was using the wrong little bubble in the scope. And after that, my daughter and I went back the next day and followed this blood trail for like 3 hours. We got there at 6 in the morning, and this very wonderful, kind old farmer sees us walking through his fields and stuff with like flashlights, and he comes out and he's like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to find a deer that I shot. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, he explained everything about blood trailing to me, and he's like, this deer isn't dead. He's like, here's where it bedded, followed him. He's like, it bedded here, and then it clotted up here, and he's like, you didn't kill it. And so he taught me a little bit about blood trailing. But then after that, I was like, okay, I'm done with all these weapons. I want to be close to an animal, and I want to learn about hunting so that I am going to learn everything there is to know about hunting, and I am going to shoot in a way that I am not dependent on modern equipment to screw me up.
Wow.
So,
what an advertisement for traditional archery right there, huh, Steph? What do you think about that?
Well,
the
and then
determination.
what was it, Steph? Like, I think our first conversation was about carving spoons. Pretty sure.
Yes.
About
I was
carving.
following you because you were the spoon lady, and then you were following me, I think, because of traditional archery. So we kind of
Her
just
mom still calls me
I was
spoon lady,
asking her
by
how
the
to
way.
carve spoons. She was asking me like the basic of archery, and yeah, he probably still calls you spoon lady just because he knows your name, but like, that spoon lady.
When I first met her, she's like, oh, you're spoon lady. I was like, nobody's ever called me that before. But Steph's like,
He'll forever be spoon lady in his heart.
So, first off, Melody, what was it like when you killed your first deer? I mean, was there any emotional barrier that you had to get over there?
Oh, well, see, I kind of thought there was going to be. So I'm like looking at this cute little fuzzy deer like through the scope, and I'm like, so I shoot it, and it was a mom and a fawn, and I shot the doe. It wasn't a little fawn, didn't have spots. It was just small, it was fine.
Yeah.
And so I shoot the doe, and then I'm like, in my mind before I shoot it, I'm like, oh, this deer is gonna be sad. I'm killing its mother, and then the deer just drops on the spot because I get it. Like, I shoot it in such a way that it went kind of through the chest and like out the back.
Uh-huh.
Because of the way it was standing down a hill, but its legs were up on the hill. And it drops. And then the other deer sniffs it and then just starts eating grass all around it. And I was like, you heartless.
So,
like, yeah. So I was like, here I'm expecting, like, I grew up watching Bambi. Like, I just killed your mother. Like, you need to be like raising all the woodland creatures to come after me or something. And then this little deer is just this little twerp, like grazing grass around its dead mother. And then it just walks away like nothing happened.
And Steph
So
here,
that
I'm pretty
cured
sure
me
Steph would have
of-
dropped the fawn then too.
I actually, no, I won't. I don't shoot fawns. I just never have had the need to, I guess. I'm in like ag land where it's all farm country, so I have the option to be picky. I know some people kind of just, they see one deer a season and they pretty much take it, but I did shoot one real little one as a kid. It was the first year that I was hunting by myself, because in Wisconsin, you have to have someone sit with you when you're 12, and then I think it's when you're 13 or 14, you're allowed to sit by yourself as long as they're within like earshot or sight. And I shot a little doe that was probably like a yearling, and I kind of got teased about that one, but I think that's the only small one I've ever shot.
So, Melody, you had somebody there to help you learn how to gut and all that?
Yeah. Well, my husband so he was still at that point, I had a 3-month-old. And then, yeah, I had a 3-month-old baby, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Holy
And
smokes.
so he was watching the kids. And then I have a good friend who actually just shot a buck the other day and sent me the best selfie ever. He's laying down next to the buck with the bucks like facing this camera, and he takes this little selfie of him and the buck. But anyway, he was sitting like I don't know, like 500 yards down, and he came and showed me how to gut it and drag it out.
Cool.
So,
Man,
yeah.
you went on a tear. Yeah, 4 the first year. That's
4 deer.
like somebody to slow her down.
Yeah, well,
The
and then I
DNRs
didn't.
love her. That's what they want us to do.
The DNR, you say?
Yeah, they sell doe tags for $10, and you can buy as many as you want, basically. But they used to do earn a buck, and they would just give you handfuls of tags. It seemed like it was just always, they just want you to kill as many as you possibly can. So
I'm
you get
assuming.
an archery buck tag and then a gun buck tag, and then it's just handfuls of does.
So I'm assuming you guys are hunting just private property.
Yep.
I hunt mainly private, but I do some public.
I was just figuring there wasn't much public land up there.
So my parents, they actually sold some land to the DNR, so there's some public that butts right up to their land. But now that I live in southern Wisconsin, I'm by the Kettle Marine State Forest, and it's insane how much land is down here. And one of the biggest bucks I've seen this year was on public.
A lot of hunting pressure.
It kind of depends on the spot. There's actually a lot of squirrel hunters, but there's also like horse trails, and so you may not be competing with other deer hunters, but there's still a lot going on. But there's definitely deer there. There's opportunities.
So I know I'm bouncing all around, but Melody, how do you balance, your hunting and your shooting and all that goes into getting ready for hunting season with the kids? I mean, you homeschool, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you do that? You sleep or you just forego sleep?
Well, sometimes I do have to just not sleep, because I'm in my final year of getting my bachelor's degree too. So that's
in what?
Like adding that on top that one's frustrating to me. But yeah, so basically I just kind of assume that my kids want to do everything with me, and if they don't want to, then it's tough luck for them. They don't really have a choice. So they go shooting with me all the time. They go to the range with me, and they go and check trails and deer cams and set up stands, and I call some of it science.
There you go. It is.
Like, we're going to go do field work today. But my oldest daughter's only 9, so, yeah, we do a lot of school. We do, but I really believe in less sitting at a desk and a lot more life, I guess. And so we do the things that we're required to do by the state, and everything else. I really think they can learn a lot by actually having hands-on skills, like learning how to use a map and a compass and things like that. And
yeah.
Balance. I don't know. We don't usually just like watch movies or shows or anything like that. We just kind of do stuff. Like my husband's just a super hard worker, and he's working and I'm working, and it works out that way. So.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier before we started, but explain what your animal is. Your on your quiver. What do you have on your quiver?
So, um, I have. I guess Steph knows I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of hunting bears. I love bears, and I told my kids at one point, that we could that we each pick like an animal that kind of we feel like symbolizes us, that we have to have something, like that we relate to with this animal. And I picked the bear because I'm like, yeah, I like to sleep and just kind of walk through the woods and, eat berries and stuff like that. And then if somebody messes with my kids, like, you better watch out, like I've got a vicious side too, but for the most part, I just kind of walk around and explore the woods. So I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much my spirit animal. I can do that.
Do you have many bear around there?
We do. I actually have a great picture of a bear before my neighbor took her bird feeders up. Her bird feeders kept on falling down every night, and so her husband was like, "Let's put a trail cam out there." So they put the trail cam out, and there's this humongous black bear, and they're like their bird feeders. They were up like 5 or 6 feet, like they were high. And this bear is just sitting there on its haunches, like scooping stuff out and eating it, like. So.
Little snack.
Well, when we were talking earlier, I like the idea of mama bear. I think the world should be full of women who are fierce when it comes to their kids. My mom, all 4'11" of her, you would not have wanted to mess with one of her kids. We were in trouble when we got home. but nobody else was going to mess with them, and my wife is the same way. So I think that's cool. I think it would be a better world if that was taken, if kids were protected like that. So that's cool.
For sure.
So Steph, what do you do for a living? Let's go down that.
Oh Lord.
Let's go down that road.
Oh, just a letter carrier for the post office.
Who inspired you to be that?
Obviously, Monty Browning. Was he a clerk, though, or was he a carrier? I'm not even sure. I just know he worked for the post office.
I don't know. But the way I remember it, that's the way he paid for some of his early hunts. So
yeah, he's on the right track. So I got to talk to him. You're gonna have to give me his phone number.
Yeah. So you climbing trees now, right? You learning how to top trees?
Of course. I do a lot of lane trimming for shooting. I don't think it could be much harder than that.
Well, how long you
swing around in a saddle with a saw? I've never used a chainsaw, but I'm sure that's simple too.
I'm sure that's simple.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, it's probably nothing carrying a saw up there. How long you been? So that's when you told me. That's when you listen to podcasts when you're delivering mail. How long you been working for the post office?
I've only been there 2.5 years.
And you work in an actual beat. I mean, you're putting your leg in it.
Yeah. Well, I walk for like 2.5 hours of the day, and then I have 2.5 hours of apartment, and then like driving. But I'm still hustling all day. There's a couple good hills on my route that I get my workout in on.
Can you do anything about junk mail? You have any influence there?
Nope.
You can't get rid of junk mail.
No, you can try to cancel a couple things on your own, but you just got to take that and use it to start fires or whatever you want to do with it.
No, so if we were on your mail route, then you should want more junk mail. So you got to carry the junk mail. That's how it works.
No.
That's right. Yeah.
We have these flyers that are, that's horrible. I have to do them tomorrow, and I'm not looking forward to it.
That's funny. Tell us something.
Yeah, I get to walk around and pet dogs and be outside, so.
You running into any vicious?
Nice. I like it.
Running into any vicious dogs?
Not really. No, I approach every dog that it wants to be my friend. So even if they're growling at me, I just hit them with a "Hi, puppers," and they just like look confused. I've gotten nipped once, but that was by it was like a cattle dog. I just grabbed the side of my hand real quick, didn't break the skin. It wasn't a healer. It was like it looked like a border collie crossed with something.
Well, yeah, border collies are usually chill, but man, blue healers. Oh gosh, I hate those things. Healers are.
I had a couple of those growing up. Yeah, there's one on my route that's a blue healer Australian Shepherd that bit the carrier before me, and she had stitches. So I know to keep away from that one, but
I learned
for the most part, I just play with them all.
That's how I learned not to look an animal in the eye. I looked at a healer in the eye one time, and he just about ripped my hand off. That's note to self: don't make eye contact.
I just feel like they like read you too, though. That I think because they know that I just want to pet every single one of them, they're like, yeah, all right, they're cool.
But you have a hound.
I do. I have a blue tick. She's a big, majestic wiggle beast.
How does that make a pet? How do you let that thing out to go pee and not have it take off?
She goes out on a leash. We do have neighbors, and we haven't gotten the yard fenced in yet. But she goes out on a leash, and she knows she's not allowed to howl in town. If she does, I yell quiet at her, and if she doesn't stop, she comes in the house. But when we go out to my parents' farm, then she knows it's a free-for-all, and she just runs wild around like the farmyard for hours, howling nonstop. She's cool. When she's in the house, though, she just sleeps. Like, she knows when to turn it on and off.
Hannah Hoff, she was awesome, and if you listen to that episode, if you follow her on Instagram, she's awesome.
See, I listened to that one, but it was a while ago, so I can't remember much about it.
Yeah, what was that, Melody?
I listened to her episode, and then I was like, dude, this girl is so legit. So I'm like, I'm gonna follow her on Instagram. Well, she still hasn't accepted my follow request, so.
Oh, Hannah Hoff.
Calling
her out. She is legit. I mean, that episode was a long time ago, but she's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And it was solo. And I'm like, whoa, man. Yeah.
And then she's like, she makes all her own food and stuff. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hannah Hoff.
Backpacking food.
Yes. Hannah Hoff. What's your Renaissance Woman? That's your handle, right?
Yeah.
Renaissance. Hannah, you got to accept that. Come on.
I'm not a stalker.
She's just demanding. Do you be her friend?
Please be my friend. No.
So anyways, we had Hannah on. We've talked to Bailey a couple times. Bailey Smith. She's super cool. It seems like we had somebody else on, but my wife, every time my wife rolls her eyes, she's like, oh my God, don't be an idiot. I'm like, honey, you know I'm an idiot. She's like, yeah, but the rest of the world's going to know you're an idiot. So, she's always like...
She's trying to keep that under wraps.
A couple Midwestern, we're pretty easygoing, so...
I don't know. It was a brutal 2 days worth of messages there. She's pointing at
that was fun.
So...
I was dying laughing with the Mr. Bean thing of him like waiting and just like laying in the grass that Melody posted.
Well, I have this great gif of it where it's like, he's like looking at his watch and like being all, but then that doesn't send through on Instagram. So
okay, so the listeners know I'm in Pacific Standard Time. I did screw up on the day. Right, we were supposed to do this yesterday.
You did.
Yes, I did.
You screwed up on the day, 20 minutes before we were supposed to do it?
Yeah, so we were only an hour off. You were 24 hours off, so.
I don't know. This might not be interesting to the listeners, but finally, I'm in an argument with two women. I'm like, this is a no-win situation. We will do this when you guys want to. How's that?
Your wife trained you well.
Yes, she has. She has. So now, Melody, you got your first trad kill this year?
I did. I got a doe.
Did you?
Yeah. So, it was pretty cool. I'm pretty sure I texted you that I was out that morning, Steph. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that I texted her and I was like, I'm never going to get anything. Nothing comes by me. And then like, it was like half hour later, I'm like, I got one.
So walk us through that. Now you're shooting. How long you been shooting the stick bow?
Well, like I said, I got that Salmon Sage for Christmas like 5 years ago.
Okay.
But it wasn't until last September I went to the Footed Shaft and Terry set me up on a 42-pound vintage, you know, like it's got the 1953 stamp on it, Grizzly. And gosh, I love that bow. And I remember he takes me out to the little range that's at the Footed Shaft, and I'm like shooting, and he goes, wow, that bow puts him right where you want him, doesn't it? And I'm like, do you think I'm ready to deer hunt? And he goes, yeah, I'd say so. And I'm like, okay. So then I go out and I'm like, I sit in a stand and I'm like, gosh, my string looks super weird. And so then I'm like on Google sitting in my stand. I'm like, bowstring isn't like looking up like what's wrong with my bow, like diagnose my problem, Google. And it's like suggested brace height is what 7 3/4 or something like that. And I'm like, brace height. I'm like, what is brace height?
And you're sitting in your stand?
Well, I'm in my stand. And then I'm like, okay, brace height is supposed to be this. And I'm like, wait a minute, my string's like 4 inches away from my riser. Okay, I've got a problem. So I get down and I get on the stand. I'm like, okay, I'm not ready to hunt yet. I needed to learn more. And so then I like figured out, I put hunting with a stick bow on hold last fall because I went out that time and I was like, yeah, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I just decided to like learn everything that I could about everything with shooting. And that's where I started talking to Steph, and she explained about arrow tuning to me while I'm explaining to her how about like carving spoons. And it was kind of like this trade of information. And and like I would like go back to our text and like scroll up and be like, okay, if it's doing this, it's too weak. If it's doing this, it's too stiff. You know, and like, cause this is what, you know, she explained it in like dumb, you know, terms for me so that I could understand. And so then anyway, I got really into like arrow tuning and like figuring out how to do it. And then this year, I went with Steph to my first 3D traditional shoot, and that was super great. How many people were there, Steph?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it was somewhere around 140
at Horicon. Horicon always gets. What did you think?
I thought it was like 140 or so total.
I would think probably even upward of that.
So is that a Wisconsin traditional archery club shoot? Or?
Yeah.
Yep, that's in Horicon.
Cool.
And Horicon they have just an awesome course, so they always get really good turnouts like every year. So that's one I never want to miss. So I was sick that day of work, unfortunately. I had to, stay home and get healthy.
So you got into arrow tuning.
Yeah, and then I went to the shoot with Steph, and I don't know, like I've just been shooting by myself up until this time. Like I've been basically just coaching myself and watching Clay Hayes and watching and reading Monty Browning. Like I was in the Stickbow Chronicles, the live stream thing that you guys did with Monty Browning and Brian Burkhart.
Oh yeah.
Just like I'm like all in on traditional archery. Like I can't do anything halfway. Like if I'm doing it, like I am going to do it better than everybody is like my goal, right? And so anyway, I go to this shoot and I think it was 58 targets, and out of that I got Steph got first for the women, and I got second, and then overall for this all the 58 targets, like even including all the men, I got 20th.
No kidding.
And then and that was my first ever 3D shoot, so I was like, okay, I think I can do this, and I have a little side note, Steph, I'm not going to go there, but I have this little side note about how I do think it's really stupid that archery, traditional archery, that like the state shoot, like it gets split into women and men. Because like we're not taking shots outside of 20 yards, it's like, it's all for the state shoot. It's all like pretty close stuff, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm first out of women. Well, there's only 4 women, so it's like I want to it'd be kind of cool to be like able. And then I asked somebody about it, and they're like, oh, the men would be way too nervous to shoot against you guys. And I was like That's not my fault. So anyway,
There
I
was
just think it would
actually,
be
so
a lot.
that's not like just the state shoot though. That's like every trad shoot I've ever been to is men and women are separate. And I brought it up at one other shoot, and I was like, I want to shoot with the men. Like I'm shooting, there's traditional longbow, modern longbow, like modern recurve, traditional recurve, and I kind of shoot different ones. Or sometimes I shoot multiple categories, and I don't have anyone to compete with. And I was like, I want to shoot against the men, so I at least have someone to compete with. And one of the guys was arguing with me, and he's like, well, you wouldn't even, be able to compete. And I was like, the last shoot, I would have been in 4th place in the men's. So I shot better than you. Don't try to tell me that I can't compete. Like, it does get frustrating in that aspect, but...
Do you remember his name?
I don't... Oh, I do, yes. I know him.
Oh, that's all. You know what? That's a great point, though. I mean, if you're standing at a 25-yard stake, there's no difference between me or either one of you two. I mean, that's a deer, and we're all standing there. Now you make a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the traditional community, like so many of the archers, whether they're men or women, like a lot of people are shooting right in that like 45-pound range. So it's not like compounds where you have the guys shooting 80 pounds and then the women are pulling like 45. Like it's not going to be a huge difference in, arrow trajectory and everything that, oh, well, the women's bows are lighter, they can't make these shots kind of thing. There really doesn't seem to be a reason we shouldn't be able to, but that's just kind of how it is everywhere I've gone.
Well, I would say...
I haven't pushed it too much, but it is
this
something I've questioned on occasion.
This is going to be your campaign?
Nah.
I questioned it right out of the gate because I was like we do our state, our shootout for the women. It's like they put us right after the kids, first of all. There's like all these kids shooting. They're like, okay, it's time for the women. And it's like, okay, 5 minutes later, the women is done. It's like, no, it's the men. And it's like, well, it's...
Oh, God. Where's Blake? I had no idea what I was getting into.
I was expecting a little more.
Oh, help me.
So.
I will say, out west, not that it makes a difference, but out west, it seems like people shoot heavier poundage, and maybe it's that might be changing. I might scrap that whole idea. It used to be, mid '90s, late '90s. I would see a lot of people shooting, on forums and stuff in the 2000s on forums. A lot of people shooting in the 45 range. But out west here, everybody shot 55, 60 pounds. I mean, you look at Fred Asbell and read any of his stuff. I mean, it just seemed like, and it wasn't, I hear people say, oh, you have longer shots. That's a bunch of who. It was kind of like a culture. Everybody just shot heavier bows. It was just a different thing out here.
I feel like it wasn't just out there because, I mean, it seems like a lot of guys, there was a time when everyone was shooting like 70, 80-pound bows, even like the scrawny guy. Fred Bear was, I think there wasn't much to him, but what was he pulling? Like he was right around 80, wasn't he?
65. Yeah, 65.
I thought he had some a lot further upward than that, but I don't know if it's just because everyone's a little older in the trad community around us, but it's like 45 is really common weight.
Well, you try to find.
That's what the majority is at.
Yeah, try to find a bow from the 60s that is anything but 45 pounds. I mean, every vintage bow you find is like 45 pounds. It's pretty rare to find anything upwards of 50. I mean, I've got a 37-pound bow. You can find lighter, but but it also goes with style of shooting, I think, too, because somebody shooting 60, 65 is probably not a gap shooter, right? You're probably shooting instinctive because you're not really holding.
Yeah.
So is this something you guys are going to pursue?
I'm not going to push for it. I can't speak for Melody.
Oh, come on. What if you guys team up?
I may or may not have already sent an email that got ignored.
That what? That got what?
That never got a reply, but that's okay. You might need to edit that out.
No, it's legit. I never really thought about it, honestly. Never really thought about it.
more so than like, I'm not like a feminist who's gonna like, I honestly think like basically hardline feminism isn't about like advancing women. It's more just about disadvantaging men. And so I'm not looking at that. I don't want that. I just want to have a chance to compete in something fun. Like I'm not going to be like, hey, I need to be able to go play football and be a Green Beret or something. Like, I just want to, I just want to be able to shoot in this like this very segmented area where it's like it is a very even playing field.
Yeah,
we're shooting the same targets from the same distance at the same, like the guys go right after we do. They stand in the same little hoop, and shoot at the exact same target. So being limited to a field of 4, it almost feels like you get a participation award if you're a woman, where it's like, oh, hey, guess what? Steph and I, we got in the top 4 of the state of Wisconsin. Don't ask how many people there were.
So
right?
I guess I'm a little bit, you say you're standing in a hoop. So are you guys actually shooting from the same, we call it a stake. I mean, where we shoot from here, we're standing at a stake.
No, it's literally a hula hoop.
But you're standing in the same
That's
spot.
for the shoot-off.
Yeah, for the shootout. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
There's most courses, I've been through quite a few of them, and most of them, the women shoot from the same spot as the men. You're just in a separate, scoring group. But there are some courses I've gone to where they actually have stakes for the women that are a lot closer. I just don't shoot them. I just shoot with the men's stakes because I'm not going to go up to my little special spot, which that annoys me a lot more than, I mean, if I'm just getting scored against women's, it's kind of whatever, but I'm not going to shoot closer because I'm a woman.
No, I find that super interesting because I never really thought about it. I get it a little bit. You guys are bringing up a point that I've never thought about, but when I go to a shoot, the shoots out here are typically set up for compounds and everybody. So, your men's stake or your pro stake, gosh, there's so many different categories. It might be 60 yards, and then the women's, I don't know, maybe women's pro or something. They might be at 50 yards and so on and so forth moving in. But even traditional, you'll have the men's traditional and then you have the women's traditional. And a lot of times what's 3 or 4 yards? It is more of a, it really doesn't matter. Maybe it should be all from the same stake.
Yeah, my archery club, I'm a member at Ojibwa Bowhunters, and we just have compound stakes and we have trad stakes and then youth.
Yeah.
So the women, women trad shooters and men trad shooters shoot from the exact same spot, and then all compounds from the exact same spot. And I think there should be a difference between compound and trad stakes, but I think it's just idiotic to have women's stakes. I see no point in that.
So you guys think there ought to be just a traditional category? No men's and women's.
I would prefer that, but I know there's a lot of female archers that probably don't take it as seriously, and they probably like to feel like they have a chance to compete, where as Melody and I want to compete with larger pools and see where we place overall. So I'm kind of torn on it. I don't really know if there is a right answer to it. I think we should have the option to be scored with the men. I don't think we should be forced to shoot in the women's category. If I want to take a chance at winning first place in men's, I should be able to. I don't know.
I can't imagine. None of the shoots I ever go to, nobody would have a problem with that. I can't. I don't think. I used to go to a lot of shoots. I went to some big shoots, and I can't think of any time where I wouldn't have thought, yeah, that's legit, that anybody would have pushed back on it, I guess where I'm saying. So maybe it's different back there.
I guess for me, I think I've always been the one who's the girl, and then it's all the group of guys, and it's all of us are going to play paintball and I'm the only girl, and all of us are going to do whatever and I'm the only girl. And so I have heard my entire life, well, that was pretty good for a girl. And I hate that qualifier. I can be good just as a human, as a person, and I don't need to be qualified in a way that makes panders to my weakness. It's okay, I can just be good at this, and I also think, like Steph said, I'd rather know that I'm good in a general pool, not just out of a small pool, you know. And overall, this really just doesn't matter because it doesn't really have anything to do with like my, you know, my hunting or anything like that. Like the shoot was just super fun. It was awesome to go to, you know. But I just wish it. I'm a very competitive person, and so I would have loved to be able to compete a little more than just my, you know, little 5-minute shootout.
Oh, you guys are making complete sense. I can buy that 100%. Do you feel like in a broader in a broader sense in the hunting community, do you feel like the women are not I don't want to say held to the same standards, but lifted to the same standards? Is that coming out right? You know what I'm saying? You guys are.
I have a lot of thoughts on this, so maybe I should.
I'm going to put my notes down, and you guys have run with it.
Well, so I did. There's an archery shop by our house that I went to. It was a women's night, and I was the only person shooting a trad bow, and I was shooting against all women with compounds, and they did a lifesaver shoot, and you paid like $1 or something to get in on it. So I'm shooting against several compounders, and it's whoever hits the lifesaver first, and I hit it.
Nice.
And it just blew my mind that I'm shooting against how many compound women at a lifesaver at 20 yards, and I'm the first one to hit it. So I feel like there's a lot of women that maybe just don't take it very serious, and it's acceptable to just not even hit a pie plat. I don't know. So I feel like it's kind of brought on ourselves by a lot of people too. I don't really know how to say how I feel about all of that.
Do you want to jump in, Melody?
Well, okay, so I do think there's a lot of women, I think, who do stuff now with hunting for the popularity of it, I guess. And Steph and I have we send each other our tree stand selfies, and it's like, hey, how's my contouring? Did I get my mascara right? Like, did you remember to put blush on today or whatever, you know? Because it's like you see all these women, these Insta huntresses who like they're taking these pictures with these amazing huge animals, and they've got like a complete makeover, and like their hair is perfect and everything, you know, and they've got this like head to toe matching like Sitka outfit and everything. And it's like, okay, well, what are you doing this for? You know? And so I think unfortunately, like hunting's kind of gotten really popular because it's like super trendy, and you can get really popular on Instagram or whatever for doing it. And so I think some of the women aren't necessarily doing it to be the best, but because it's another way to get popular. I guess if that makes sense. I don't know.
It does. It does absolutely. And you know, I like what Steph said. You know, if it's, well, I'm treading on thin ice there. I'm like, I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Come on, Rob.
Stand around a campfire, I'd say it. But you know, I like where you guys are going. I mean, if you could drop back to, hey, if we're shooting 25, 30 yards, I'm shooting next to you guys. I mean, we're all shooting at the same deer. It's pretty damn equal playing field. If somebody doesn't want to, chooses not to take it as serious, I mean, that's their choice. But you guys that are serious about it, I mean, there's no reason why that, you know, you go into a shoot that there's a different trophy for you and I if we're standing at the same stake. I mean, that is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's like that all kind of goes away with hunting. Go ahead, Steph.
I shoot with like a lot of guys that like. There's a lot of our club members that they do treat me 100% as an equal, and they'll say like, "I know you can kick my ass," but there's always those few that, you know. I mean, the masses are probably supportive of like saying that they think we could be just as good, but there's always those couple that just are very against like women being in that category. So it's not that insanely important to me that I'm not gonna push it, but it's just one of those things that comes up when we're all hanging around, like drinking beers afterwards, and like, well, why can't I? But it's not. I'm not heartbroken that I can't kick their ass at their own game in their group, but oh well.
We did threaten to drive to Idaho and kick my ass, so I am kind of intimidated by that.
I do resort to violence often, apparently.
That's awesome. No, this is really good insight. And let me step back because I did make a note early on, Melody. You were talking about you were looking to Steph for some help and guidance in arrows and tuning your bow and all that. Do you feel like it's harder for a woman to be taken seriously enough to ask, or is it just easier to ask Steph?
Well, I asked Steph because I don't know, like I like having real world like advice. I don't want to just go to a forum. Like I want actual like mentors and stuff. And so I asked her specifically because it's like I can only look at the Three Rivers spine chart so long before I'm like, it still doesn't make sense to me. I didn't know what I was looking at. And so when she explained it, it was so like simple that I was like, oh, okay. But here's the funny thing, like other than the Footed Shaft, which is the best store ever, if I go to any archery shop, like the way that they treat me is absolutely hilarious. Like I went into a Cabela's because like I just ordered a Bear Montana longbow, and from a guy on a Bear Archery Facebook group. Anyway, so I wanted to try shooting it before I actually ordered it, and they had it at Cabela's. So I went there to try it, and this guy's just like, and he's just like giving me all this stuff, and he's like, do you know what you're doing? And he like hands me an arrow, and I'm like, there's no field point on this arrow. Can I have a different one? And he's like, yeah, in a bucket over there. And so like go pick up the bucket, and I like shoot, and I hit the bullseye, and he goes, oh. And it's like, you like treat me like I am some annoying child, who just wants to come and play with like some toys until you see that I can shoot. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, so do you hunt? And it's like, okay, all of a sudden we're buddies because I can shoot a bow. But until then, I'm just another annoying girl who's like trying to be like the Hunger Games, so
awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway. Like, sweetie, you're going to hurt yourself with that. Please don't touch that.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, I've definitely noticed that too. Like, because even when I first started with a compound, my first bow, I went into one archery shop and it was set up so horrible. And I think it's because they don't take you serious that they don't bother trying to set you up right. They're like, well, I mean, if she can hit a pie plate, she'll be doing good, so this is fine. And I feel like with traditional in general, people don't take you serious. So then when you're like a girl shooting traditional, they think you're just trying to be Katniss. Like, here, give her a bow and give her an arrow and she'll be happy. Who cares if it flies? But we do have like a nice archery shop around here that they know how serious we are. So I don't have that issue anymore. But I remember I used to run into that stuff a lot. Or even just when you tell someone, like I'd be wearing a camel sweatshirt and someone's like, oh, do you hunt? Like, yeah. Oh, do you gun hunt? Well, and I bow hunt. Do you use a crossbow? No. Like, they always have to assume that you are the bare minimum hunter first. Like, oh, you probably only kill animals with a rifle. Oh, you're definitely not pulling back a compound. You're probably using a crossbow. Like, it's always they expect so little of you.
Yeah, that does go for, I mean, we'll walk it back just a little bit. Maybe not so much now, but there was a time when traditional archery was the same way. I mean, when I first moved to North Idaho from Central Idaho, I remember walking into I'd killed some stuff, and I walk in there, and once the guy finds out I shoot a stick bow, he's just like, oh, like, oh, you don't really hunt, you shoot a recurve. So I guess it is compounded, as a woman when you walk in. Now, you guys mentioned huntress. I've really walked on thin, I don't want to say thin ice. I've really walked around that term. I have never tagged it, and I really, really want to promote. I mentioned Hannah Hoff, and I mentioned Bailey Smith. I think it's really important to promote good good role models. And I don't know, I've never hashtagged that, trying to get these episodes out there because I'm not sure if it's an insulting term or if it is, something that.
So the huntress thing?
Yes.
I don't know. Like sometimes here's the thing that Steph and I have noticed a little bit. We both know how to get a bunch of followers. Right, Steph?
Uh-huh.
Because basically, what does everybody want to see? Well, they want to see women that call themselves girls, that are tagging Insta Huntress, that are tagging Archery Babe, that are tagging Archery Girl, Archery Woman. They don't want to actually see like a regular, like Midwestern female, like wearing what we actually wear because it's stinking cold out there. Like, they want to see a little more than that. And so all you have to do is, make it a little more provocative and then add Insta Huntress, and add whatever it is in order to make it so that you have like 5,000 creepy male followers. And there you go. But we're not going to do that because we're serious. We're actually serious about hunting, not just about Instagram and social media. And like neither Steph or I, like we don't want to cheapen the experience of hunting and of archery, by selling out for the sake of getting followers or anything, because it's just not that important. Like one of the things that I really think it's like for us hunting and shooting, it has to be enough just to do it, not doing it and taking a picture of it and posting it and getting all of this affirmation, like I want my experience of hunting to be good enough, even if I never get to post it on social media, because that is not why I'm doing it. Like this has to be like something that's going for my own, building me into being a better person, and not just getting all of this false affirmation from people who can never see you again by clicking an unfollow button, So anyway, I get annoyed by the Insta Huntress thing because it's just another one of those ways that women are basically being looked at as like a consumable commodity that you can just toss out when it's done, instead of just being taken seriously. Like you don't see, it's not like Levi Morgan is getting himself all dolled up before he gets this picture, and making sure like his foundation is right and his hair is just perfectly swooped. It's like, no, he's just wearing his hunting clothes, right? But then you see all these Insta Huntresses, and what are they having? Like they all have to look completely perfect in order to be featured in this way that they are. And that's where I think it's a shame. It's like we want to be treated like, one of the things we talked about for this episode was like we were talking about calling it like one of the boys or one of the guys or something like that, because it's like that's just what we want to be. Like we don't want to be seen as the Insta Huntress. We're just hunters,
Yep.
So that's my rant.
No, that's awesome. You got to add anything to add to that, Steph?
I feel like she summed it up pretty good there. I remember when like Huntress first kind of started getting tossed around, and I didn't mind it, but it was not long after that came out that it kind of got the reputation that it did, of just, you look up Huntress to find like seductive women like holding a bow, and half the time they're holding it like they don't even know what they're doing, or they're drawing and you can tell that like they're freaking ruining their shoulders, whatever. So that was when I got irritated with it, and that's what a lot of people did, because it just kind of evolved into this just fake persona. It doesn't, so I don't like to be considered a huntress because I feel like it's just all fake now. I'm just a hunter. Like I'm not that. I think Melody did a way better job at explaining kind of how it has evolved. It just feels like a dirty world with where like all the huntress stuff has gone. Like I don't think you're doing it for the right reasons with most of those people.
No, I figured, and again, for the listeners, I had no idea we were going to go down this road. But when you talk about, wanting to be shooting in the same crowd, shooting in the same group, I can only assume that's where you would go. And like I said, I think it's super important, not just for young people, but for young women because of everything you're saying. That is the majority of the crap you see. And, you guys are taming it down, the kind of crap that's on social media. So when you get people that are, women that are just, they want to hunt and they want to enjoy the whole experience. And no matter the weapon, I mean, stick bow, I mean, that's what we do is stick bow, but no matter the weapon, you got people that want to hunt and they're a good role model. I think it's super important. Stick Bow Chronicles is pretty small, but for these bigger companies to showcase them that, I mean, this is what it's about. Don't do this. This is what it's about, because we all know that it is a much nicer path going about it on your skill set and just enjoyment than the other thing.
I try to keep my Instagram where if my dad stumbles on it, I'm not ashamed or embarrassed. I always joke that I just pretty much just like a hobo all the time because I'm just always cold and dressed for comfort. So I don't know how these girls can be shooting in bikinis and half dressed. Maybe it's Wisconsin. Maybe if I lived in Alabama, I'd be different. But I don't want to be like embarrassed when someone stumbles on my page, like, oh, that's what you're posting. But
I have to admit, I tried to do something this summer for likes, and I wore some short shorts, and I shot my bow.
How many likes did you get?
Posting that on social media.
Oh, I got thrashed. I was in shorts, and I just got lit up. I
remember a picture where Aaron Snyder posted a picture of himself wearing shorts, and his legs are like translucent. They're like glowing in the dark.
No, and we want to be equal. We want to be able to show our legs and get likes. And I'm offended by that.
Well, then you need to start showing them at the beginning of the summer so they tan with the rest of us.
All right.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
You can't whip out the translucent legs in September. You got to start doing it in like April. You got to taper in.
Oh, yeah. I got lit up. I didn't get lit up by Blake, and he's supposed to be on my side. I don't know. I was just for what is it called? For loving for likes or something?
I have no idea. You're the techie one here.
No, that's good stuff, and it's legit. It's good conversation.
I feel like Melody should tell us about her first doe.
That's how we got down this rabbit hole.
Steph, I haven't told you about my hunt on Sunday yet.
Yes, or tell me about Rosemary.
Okay, so Rosemary is the 13-point buck that I missed. It is the first buck that I have gotten a chance to see with a stick bow in my hand. And it was absolutely amazing. And Steph told me that I'm the only person she knows who would say it was amazing to miss a 13-point buck. But the truth of it it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so I'm sitting up in the stand, and it was cold. It was like 30-mile-an-hour winds in my face all day. And so then now I have this list of things that I'm learning every hunt. I need to bring this, I need to bring this, I need to bring. Contact solution is now on the top of my list. I didn't even think of that before. And my contacts dried out so bad that I lost my right eye, and that's where I aim with, and so anyway, I have I'm sitting in this stand, I'm half blind, but I can see still out of my left eye. And I have this little twerpy buck fawn come in, and I'm I haven't seen anything all weekend. That buck fawn kind of looks like a good thing to shoot. And so I'm watching it come in, and I'm I don't know. I don't think I should shoot this. This is really small. And then I just hear this little noise, and I look off to the side, and all I see walking through the brush are just tines. I can't see a body yet, just tines coming through. And I was oh my gosh. And it kind of had a little bit of a freak out moment. And then I was oh, this is so cool. I was just sitting there waiting for him to come in, and gosh, I am just so incredibly blessed to have this big huge buck coming towards me. And then I look over and I see another set of just huge tines coming through the woods. And that's the beauty of Wisconsin. There's big bucks. They're awesome. And this big typical 8 decides to just keep walking straight, and the 13-pointer was turning towards me, so I didn't want to mess anything up by grunting and trying to get him to come over. And because I wanted to see if the 13-pointer would just come on his own. And he followed this twerpy little buck fawn exactly. And so this thank God I didn't shoot that stinking little buck fawn, because he's already out in this field eating on some hay, And so then this other buck just like, okay, I can go over there. He's fine, right? And so he comes in, he like steps behind this brush pile. And so then I'm like, okay, I put my bow up and I'm ready to shoot. He steps out from the brush pile and just takes a little like pause. And so then I shoot and I just hear this like thwack. And there is a little buckthorn bush and it's got a little Y in it. And the one side, it was like this big. It was like it wasn't even on my radar. It was right in front of his vitals. And my arrow just sliced right through it and my arrow got stuck in it. And this buck just takes off and I never saw him again. But like he's walking and he's like seriously like in rut where it's like he's like every 5-6 steps he's grunting, you know, and like I had never heard a buck grunt before, you know, and that was so cool. So then after he takes off, Twerpy is still out eating in the field and I hear more noise coming from behind me, and then all of a sudden this big gray barred owl comes and swoops in and just lands like 10 feet away from my face and is just staring there, sitting there looking at me. And I'm like, gosh, this is what bow hunting is about. Like my shot was so quiet because it was a stick bow that this owl just comes right where I just shot. It's no problem, you know, and he's just sitting there staring at me. And then all of a sudden he turns and he swoops away just as quiet as can be. And then 3 doe step out right in front of me, broadside, like 15 yards. And one of them is big. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for this doe. And so then I like get ready to a point where I can shoot, and she turns and she's just staring at me. And so I'm just completely still. And she just like, okay, flicks her tail and takes a step. And then all of a sudden I hear this grunting. And I look over in the field and this huge buck just comes in, his head down, his hair all puffed out, and he's drooling and grunting like every few steps. And this doe is like, oh no, and like turns around and just wheels away, and he's just chasing her completely. And so I'm like, okay, that was the coolest thing ever. And like I didn't even think about shooting this buck. He just had this massive crazy rack, and then not the 13 pointer that I had been aiming at. And so I'm like, okay, that's got to be it. Like I've got to have exhausted my cool deer coming in, right? And but it was just like 20 more minutes until it's sundown, and I hear more grunting, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I look in front of me, and this fork buck. It was forked, but his tines were probably like 7 or 8 inches, like they were tall, and he comes down. And he just walks over in front of me, and I'm waiting. He steps right behind a brush of buckthorn, and so I can't get a shot because he just stays there. And then he starts communicating with this other buck, and then he ends up getting shot by the neighbor. So he walked away from me, and then that was all that I saw after that. But that was so cool to see. I mean, I feel like I learned more from watching them and hearing them actually grunt at each other, since I've never heard that before, than had I actually killed the buck that I was aiming at. So I'm not really frustrated about it, because I feel like I've never had a hunt like that. Like now I know what hunting the rut can be like. This is my first time hunting the rut, you know? So anyway, that's my.
I'm with you, Steph. I can't believe she thinks that's amazing.
She's like, I missed Rosemary. It was amazing. Like, I mean, I missed a big buck this year, and that is not how I felt about it. But all right. Like 3 weeks later, and I'm still like, man, things could be so different. He could be hanging on my wall right now. You know, I could be pheasant hunting or duck hunting, but still trying to get a buck down. And she's like, it was amazing. Like, oh, okay.
I want to come hunt with you guys.
Seriously, I get to go back out tomorrow.
That's awesome.
And so I'm bringing 4 of my kids. Toddlers going to grandma's house, and then I'm bringing all their school books. And so then I'll do school with them in the morning, and then come 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I get to go sit in a stand until dark, and they'll be watched by some of my family. And so I get to hunt the next 2 or 3 days or so in Wisconsin again. And I'm super excited about that, because I thought my hunt was over. So
when's your first off, it seems like they must rut a little earlier where you're at than where I'm at. I wouldn't see that. I wouldn't expect to see that activity for another, right, 10 days, 2 weeks. When's your season end?
Well, my Minnesota season.
Wisconsin, like in them.
Oh, my season basically, I feel like it gets. I can't really hunt much in November because we have an early gun season.
Gotcha.
And it's just ridiculous how many gun hunters there are. So basically, I have until Friday in Minnesota, and that's it. But Wisconsin, doesn't it go until January?
So I know in like the certain units it goes until January 31st. So it opens like around September 12th this year, and you can shoot until I think it's January 31st. But there's certain areas that might close a little sooner than that, maybe like beginning of January. But they really just want us to abolish the whole whitetail herd, so they give us a lot of time to do it.
I got to imagine that's pretty warm in January up there.
Warm? Yeah. It can. I mean, it can get rough, but you just bundle up.
For a girl?
Yeah, for a girl.
Yes, for a girl. We don't have all that body fur.
So Steph, you killed a buck already this year, didn't you?
No, that was last year. I missed a buck this year.
Oh, maybe I was just bringing that up.
Yeah, you're just trying to break my heart and rub it in.
No, actually, I thought you did. That must have been last year. I didn't realize you missed it.
I shot a doe this year.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I shot a doe maybe like the first week of October, and then on the October 12th, I missed a big 10-pointer that he was built like a Brahma bull, and he kept showing up on the cameras after that just to taunt me that he's still around. So that one I shot right under him, so there was just hair and then blood on one side of my arrow, and that was it. And he just trotted off 20 yards like he had no idea what happened.
You still hunting that area? Is that buck still around?
I'm still in that area, but we have quite a few trail cameras out. In the last, 2 weeks or so, a lot of them have been acting up. I don't know if it's batteries dying or, cards kind of errors, but so he hasn't been on camera real recently, but, I mean, it could be possible that he's around and we're just missing him. We have a cell cam. I think he was on there, a week ago. But he is staying in the farm for a good chunk of his time, so hopefully he messes up and walks past me again. Otherwise, we've got some other nice 8-pointers and 10s that are moving around. But yesterday morning, my dad was hunting 100 yards up a line fence from me. He was south of me, and I saw this deer coming across the field, and it was right at first light, and so I just coming at my head, and then a couple minutes later, I realized it was for sure a buck. And my dad hunts with a crossbow because he's an old farmer that his shoulders, everything are just gone these days. And so when it got near him, I'm listening and waiting, and all of a sudden I hear his crossbow go off. And I'm getting ready thinking, if he hit this thing and say it's lungs, it could make its way down to me because I'm 100 yards away. So I'm standing up, and I got fingers on the string, and an arrow knocked, and this buck is probably 17, 18 inches wide at least. And I think maybe a 10-pointer comes running up, and he hooks in front of me on a trot. And I've got this one shooting lane that I'm thinking all right, maybe I can get a second arrow in him. So I hit him with a mat, but he still stopped just past the lane. And because as he's coming through the lane, I'm drawing I'm swing shooting. So when he stopped, I'm fixated completely on this buck, and I let one fly, and I send it right into the side of a small poplar. And the buck just runs. Man. And then it was downhill from there. Then it turns out that he didn't make a great shot on it. We didn't find it, but I was there was my opportunity to try to shoot one, and it went into a tree, but I was just 100% fixated on him because it was just happening so fast that didn't notice the tree.
I hear that. A question for you guys. So you guys kind of shoot similar, it sounds like, similar styles. Either one of you into sports when you were kids, younger?
No, not at all.
Melody, you were?
Yeah, well, I played basketball in high school, and soccer.
Yeah.
So,
I was just curious about the hand-eye coordination.
Well, Melody, you gap, don't you?
What?
You gap, don't you?
I do a mix of instinctive and gap, I think. I kind of came up with my own. So I shoot 3-under and Steph shoots split finger, and I camp my bow and Steph shoots straight up and down. Steph has a really cool shooting style. It's very unique. I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anybody shoot in overalls either. First time I met Steph, she's wearing shorts overalls. It was great. Sure. But she pulls back like this and then like settles into her anchor.
Oh.
It's really,
I overdraw, and it's something with how I roll my shoulder in. I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying. So so you overdraw and then you sink into your anchor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's just like a way it feels like that's the only way for me to get my shoulder like in alignment and drop back to the spot that I kind of feel is like the sweet spot where, you know, my hand's not going to come out or do anything crazy. I don't know how I started doing it, but it works most of the time.
Do you guys ever get on YouTube and look at any Tom Klum stuff, or have you ever looked at anybody's stuff?
Well, we've tried that.
It doesn't go well.
You don't know YouTube? You have trouble with YouTube?
No, we so when we watch videos, it seems so simple. Like, oh, that's what you do, and then I end up shooting horrible and hurting my shoulder, and then it just all goes to shit, and I can't hit the broadside of a barn. And then I just go back to doing what I know and what works for me. I can't learn from a video, apparently.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, did you hear that episode of Stickbow Chronicles where they're like saying this and that? And like I send it to her and she's like, oh, I'm gonna have to listen to that. And then we're like a week later, we're like, we screwed up everything in our shooting form.
I know.
That was a terrible idea. Why did you let me do that?
So basically for me, I moved from, because I came from, I had no archery mentors, and I came from a background of zero archery, really, to trying to figure it out myself. Like I basically watched Clay Hayes on YouTube, and I thought the only way to draw was split finger. I didn't know there was such thing as 3-under. And so then I'm like watching him and I'm like, you know, that makes a lot more sense for the way that I want to do this. Cause like I have a really high anchor, and I really like to see down my arrow. And I really like, I pay a lot of attention to that sight picture that I get down my arrow. And I felt like I was constantly like my finger was in my way. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's a better way for me to do this. And so I went to shooting 3-under and saw my accuracy just go way up.
Really?
And then I had been told by somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody who told me that the best anchor that you could do for archery was to lock it behind your jaw. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try that. And so that's how I started doing it. And then I realized like that's a really crappy way for me to, like, I have no sight picture on my arrow. Yeah, it's consistent, but it's also cumbersome, and like it makes for a hard release, you know, and like, I don't know. So anyway, I went to going to an anchor that was really repeatable for me every time, and like gave me that sight. Once I got a good sight pictured on the arrow, I feel like everything just kind of started coming into place. And that's when my first ever archery shoot I decided to go to. It was not a real archery shoot. I went to a Renaissance festival, and I competed in a costume. And I got second place, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then a month later was when I went to the Footed Chaff and got myself a nice bow, and actually decided to really try to start taking it seriously, because I was like, it's really fun to like compete against people. I was like, it's got to be amazing to hunt like this.
Yeah.
Melody is very competitive. I beat her at that shoot, and she's determined to beat me at something since then. We've discussed many like various forms to compete in.
Play.
But right now she's beating me in the Fair Traditional Archery group. There's a paper plate league. So since she's beating me there,
of that. Tell me about that. I actually see what you guys post something once in a while about that. What is that?
It's the Traditional Bear Archery. They have a Facebook page, and the page is running a like a league where everyone has the 9-inch paper plate, and then you draw the 5 different rings that are like 5 down to 1 point each, and you shoot it from 12 yards, and you do 30 arrows, and then you score it. Now you're gonna run it around like 10 weeks, I think, and I'm doing it just kind of because that way I make sure I'm still shooting like bigger groups of arrows. Hunting season, I kind of slack off because they're not going to the course. It's a lot of just, being out hunting all day, and I only shoot a couple otherwise. But there's a decent number of people competing in it, but I believe 150 is a perfect score.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a good way to work on repetition with your form, but I get so like bored staring at that one spot that it's not my strong suit at all. Melody's definitely kicking my ass in that one. But otherwise, we discussed like a leg wrestling match to give her a chance to win, and I think this is probably the better suited option.
Nah, she's gonna smoke you. She played basketball. You got a chance.
Well, I'm
scrappy though. I've never leg wrestled, so.
Yeah, and so I can automatically. I'm just about 5'10", so I have a good advantage over Steph.
I got leverage.
Oh. Yeah, so I don't even remember how we got talking about that, but something happened where I told her that like one of the first times that I met my mother-in-law to be, I didn't know at all. I was 16 years old, and I had been challenging my other friends to this leg wrestling competition because like wherever I go, I'm always just like, hey, I bet I can beat you to that tree, or like, I bet I can touch that wall, like when I jump or whatever, and so I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a leg wrestling competition, right?
We know it's your mother-in-law.
Well, I didn't know I was to be my mother-in-law, but I'm like, hey, do you want to leg wrestle me? And I like flip her on her back.
Winner gets your son.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like crying when she told me that she leg wrestled her mother-in-law and just flipped her. Like, what is wrong with you?
No. Oh, that's funny.
Bad. It's bad. I've got this need to compete, and I never go into anything thinking I'm going to lose. I always go into it like, oh, of course I'm going to win. And I know that's like, I thought that was just like me being stupid all the time, right? But then I listened to an episode here where Monty Browning was explaining his mindset, and I was like, finally, somebody who thinks the way that I do. Where he's like, remember the one where he got his hand shot?
Oh my gosh.
And
I not only get a chance to hear this stuff and die, but then I have to edit it and I die. So I'm sitting it like by myself, just dying laughing. That is one of the funniest stories I've ever heard in my life.
Seriously.
Yeah.
He's kind of a legend for Steph and I. Like, we're always like, well, Monty Browning would do that.
What would Monty do?
Yeah, but so I can't remember if it was on your podcast or it might have been the Push, but there was an episode of the Wenzels, and I think, do you remember ever hearing that Gene Wenzel was huge into leg wrestling? Like, he's undefeated?
Dude, I don't know if I buy that. Have you ever met the Wenzels?
I've seen Barry in person. You're going to have to get them on the show and ask them, but I'm pretty sure Gene Wenzel is like undefeated. No. And so I told Melody, you need to leg wrestle Gene. No. Like, this has to happen. I demand it.
That would be like leg wrestling a weeble. Like, you have to look that one up. So you guys aren't too young for that. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Weebles wobble, we don't fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
I've got kids.
No, I got to think that's a myth. And I think it's a bad idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's one of my best ideas yet, if I'm being honest.
Oh.
So I'm going to write an email to Gene requesting that meetup. And I'm going to tell him that you said that he's a weeble and you don't think he can do it.
Well, if it actually happens, please get me explicit rights to run it on the show.
It's going to be beautiful.
You got it.
You know what? Maybe Melody could use it as a science project for her kids. Talking about leverage.
Like leverage. The longer the lever. Yeah.
Yeah, but,
there we go.
Picking up let's not go there. No, Monty Browning, those episodes just kill me. absolutely kill me when he talks about almost running over Fred Bear.
Mhm.
Mm.
Oh, that's good stuff. What kind of broadheads you girls shooting?
I just changed mine actually. The last few years I've been hell bent that single bevel is king, and I still really love them because I've had like great success with them. But this year I had some arrows I wanted to shoot out of the bow I was using, and all my single bevels are too heavy, and I just didn't feel like cutting anything down. And my fiance has been obsessed with penetration tests with broadheads recently, so he was reading and watching a million videos, and he told me about the Exodus. So we started testing those out, and that's what I'm shooting this year, and they seem to be pretty awesome. I think they might have switched me over from the single bevels.
I'm not familiar with it.
But they're
Exodus. What's the shape? What's it look like?
They come in hundreds and 125s, and it's a 3-blade, and you can get it in swept blades, or I can't think of what the other style is called. I think a full blade, maybe they call it. But it's got the tip is kind of hardened. Is it a Tanto tip?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's a small 3-blade, but we have a lot of bows in different poundages, and he made all these different like targets to try to test out penetration. And he was comparing the Exodus on, it was like a Howard Hill style bow that was, I want to say like 47 pounds versus his 65 pound Super Kodiak replica with a Woodsman, and it was crazy how much the Exodus outperformed at like penetration. So he did all these head to heads, and it kicked ass and everything. The only thing a single bevel one was if he put like a piece of wood in front, and then the single bevel would win it like barely. So that's what I shot my doe with, and she was quartering 2, and I passed through her whole body and exited out of her ham.
Ooh.
They're pretty cool, and that was with a 40-pound recurve.
Wow. Let me ask you this: is that Exodus smaller than the Wenzel Woodsman?
It's a lot shorter, but I think the cutting diameter is probably pretty similar. It's got to be close.
You know, I monkeyed around with
at least half the size.
Shooting into plywood this year, and I was amazed because I was in my redneck brain. I was always told that the 3-to-1 ratio. I'm more of a 2-blade guy, or a 2-blade with bleeders, so kind of a 4-blade. But that 3-to-1 ratio, like a Magnus, that type of broadhead would out-penetrate the short, fat ones, right, with the same cutting diameter, but much shorter head. But I was wrong, man. Just like your fiance's finding, like, what was it, a Magnus? Magnus, not a Stinger, a Magnus, but not a Black Hornet.
No,
Magnus Black Hornet.
Yes.
And Ironwill, a shorter, fatter, it just didn't drag as far through that wood and out penetrated him for sure.
The Black Hornet was another one he really wanted to try, but it wasn't available at any of the shops near us, so he didn't get to. But I think, like, shape-wise, I think that's pretty similar to the Exodus. Don't quote me, but this one is like, it's probably like a little over an inch long versus the Grizzlies I was shooting that were like 2 inches long, because I was really convinced on those single bevel, like 2-blades. I loved them.
Yeah.
But they just weren't going to fly with these arrows, and he was doing all this testing, and so I was like, all right, I'll try it.
Was that an Exodus?
That's the one. That's the picture Steph sent me.
Man, that thing's wicked looking. That wouldn't be...
and it's they're super durable. They're crazy durable.
Yeah, that wouldn't be legal in Idaho.
Because of the swept?
Yeah, because the back is greater than 90 degrees.
Barbed.
Yep. So it's considered barbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. How about you, Melody?
But they do sell that in what they call a full blade, so it's not like barbed then, that you could get that one in the slightly different style. But...
I see. You a pro staffer for them?
No. I can't even remember who makes them, honestly. So it'd be pretty bad.
You'd be hashtagging, yeah. What about
I'm
you?
shooting grizzly single bevels on recommendation from Steph. And now I find she's abandoned those,
I
but
see that.
No, I
yeah.
still love them
So,
for other
That's what
bows, but
happens
this
to
bow
pro.
is set up
That's what happens to pro
spectacular.
staffers. They just go where the money is.
yeah. Hashtag sponsored, right?
Huntress sponsored.
Yeah.
I can pretty much quit my job now.
Yeah. No, so I've pretty much always been shooting since I got that grizzly. I've been shooting 40. That grizzly that I got first from Terry at the footage shop was 42 pounds, and then I moved up to a 45-pound grizzly that I've been shooting pretty much exclusively until I found this longbow on Craigslist for $100, just cheap little Three Rivers mount longbow, but I love it, and it's 35 pounds, but my draw is it's like almost 29 and a half inches.
Wow.
So yeah, I've got long arms.
Man.
So
Don't arm wrestler either.
I have what?
Don't arm wrestler. No leg wrestling,
Yeah.
no arm wrestling.
Oh gosh, I've got stories of that too. Anyway, so my arrows are 30 and a half inches, and I have to be careful about drawing. Like I have sliced my knuckle a few times by drawing my broadhead into it. So anyway, so I know I'm stacking some, and I know I think I'm getting close to 38-ish pounds out of my bow. And that's what I shot my doe with. And I shot her at 21 yards, and I was about 5 inches high into the back a little bit, and I got her just right through the spinal cord, and it went in and just lodged right in the bone. And that was with the grizzly single bevel. And then for some stupid reason, okay, I am learning every day. I am not an experienced hunter. Nobody has me on here for hunting advice. So somebody told me, well, you're only going to get one shot at a deer, but there's usually lots of squirrels. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll bring a bunch of small game arrows with me then. I actually I spine shot this deer, and she didn't die, obviously. She's just like laying there. And I had to run back up to my house, like 300 yards up the hill, and grab another broadhead and then go and shoot her in the vitals. And I go up there and like, I hope none of the kids are down here to ask me what I'm doing. And so anyway, the arrow that I grabbed then was a Magnus Stinger with bleeders. I really, really like that broadhead. That's actually the one that I decided to use now. I'm using gold tip, what is it? The Traditional XT, I think is what they are. They're a micro diameter. And it's got a 70 grain collar insert in it, and then a collar, and then the 125 grains. So I'm shooting right now, I'm at right about 540 grains total.
Wow. Nice.
And when I went back to shoot her again to kill, because I knew she wasn't going to die from that poor spine shot that I made, my arrow went all the way through and buried into the fletching. And the only reason it didn't pass all the way through was because she was on the ground and it hit the ground. And so I find it absolutely amazing that like what 38 pounds can do. Yeah. You know, like I kept on texting Steph, and I'm like, are you sure it's okay to hunt with this bow? Are you sure it's strong enough? You know, like, am I really going to? And she's like, chill. I shot my first deer with a 35-pound bow. It'll be fine. You know, you can do that. And I'm glad I did, because it was, you know, I can hold it for so long and I can really aim. And for my first kill being at 21 yards, I feel pretty good about that, because like, you know, it wasn't a perfect shot, but it worked in the end. You know, it was about 10 minutes from the time I shot her until the time that I finished her off. So,
well, you're probably pretty fast too.
Yeah, pretty fast.
Did you say, I'll be right back? You wait here.
Yeah, I'm like, don't move. Oh, wait, you're paralyzed.
Don't move. I'll be right back.
But seriously, gosh, it was the coolest moment when I went back, after I did that, I walked back up to my house, because I was like, okay, I know I got her in the heart this time. Like, she's going to bleed out here, you know? And so like, I just walked away and was like, I'm going to come back in, you know, half hour or so and see what's going on here. And I walk up to my house, and there's my daughter standing there, and she's waiting at the window, and she's like, do you see anything, Mom? And I'm like, I sit down and I'm like, I got one. And all of my kids come running up, even the toddler, and they're like, yay, Mommy! It was the coolest thing ever, you know? And like, I love the fact that my kids now think that their mom hunting with a longbow and actually killing deer is completely normal. You know, like they're going to grow up thinking that's just the way that you do it. That's the way that you hunt.
That's what Mama
Yeah.
Bear does.
I like that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all. And you know, I have the good fortune to have hundreds of kill pictures this year, and there are a few where you just see those smiles, and I gotta say, yours picture is one of them. Like this genuine, like, holy crap, this is an awesome smile. Yeah, those are great pictures.
well, I was really genuinely spurred on by, okay, so my husband is very supportive in general, but he sees how hard I am on myself if I'm not basically perfect in everything that I'm trying to achieve, because I am very competitive and I am a perfectionist. And I think he didn't want me to set these kind of high like standards for myself, because he's like, you know, you really need to stop reading Monty Browning books before you go hunting. And I'm like, you know, because I have the book sitting out on my table from the campfire chat that we did. You know, I have Fredbear's field notes out here, and he's like, you read all these stories, and it's like, you realize how many years it's taken these guys to do all of this cool stuff. And I'm like, I can do this. Like, I am going to get a deer this year, you know? Cool. And so like, I just when I got to the point of doing it, like, it was so cool to go tell my husband, who he was just, you know, coming off of nights, you know, so through his, you know, sleepy haze, I'm like, I got a deer. And he was so happy for me. So it was really cool because of like where we are, nobody hunts with a stick bow. I don't know any. Steph was the first, you know, Steph and Terry and Barb down at the Footed Shack, like, that's it. That's all I know who hunts with a stick bow.
That is so cool.
So.
You got one of the best stories. You know, you earlier mentioned earlier the Fredbear. Was it you or yeah? It was you that had the Fredbear videos.
No, that was Steph.
I do.
Does that not just kindle this fire inside you, like yearning for, you know, the 50s and 60s when life was way easier and you just, you know, hunting with a stick bow, and it's just, that's so cool, man. It just fires me up.
Yeah, and it was I somehow found out about the DVD and I ordered it and we started watching it and we're like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. And we're both hunting with a compound. And I had only used a compound, I think, like maybe 2 or 3 years at that point. So I was still pretty new to archery in general. But I never got into it. It was just boring to me, like to put the pin on, pull the trigger kind of thing. Like I really couldn't get into shooting a lot. It just wasn't fun. So then we're watching these hunts of like Fred just chucking arrows and shooting pheasants and shooting fish and all this. And we're like, we have to do this. Like, I just need to do this. And it just completely took over our lives. It's like all we did for a lot of years. We're finally getting back to fishing and doing a little bit of other things, but it was just hours every day of shooting because it's just so cool. And I don't know, it is really a lifestyle, I guess.
Well, we got Melody over here. She's running out of jackets. She's got a hat on, or she's got and a down jacket now. So apparently,
I have my son's like dinosaur print fleece blanket because it's Minnesota. It's cold.
Are all the chores done? Can you go now? You're like, hey, I'm out of here. All the chores are done. Kids are in bed.
Oh yeah, and my husband's already asleep up there. So. But oh gosh, I was gonna say, so like meeting Steph through Instagram, that was super helpful for me to really get into archery. And going to my first traditional shoot with Steph, I felt like I was finally one of the cool kids, because she's like everybody's favorite niece at the Wisconsin Traditional Archers, you know, like she just walks around and everybody loves her. And what Steph, like I had like met her like all of 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden this guy pulls up and he like gets out of this, and she's like, "That's who was it? What's his name?"
Scott Anzac.
The guy who got shot at.
What was that?
Do you remember? The guy who got shot at.
Scott Anzac.
Yeah, and he comes walking up, and I'm like, I don't know who anybody is in traditional archery, right? And so it was really afterwards, after we're standing there talking and listening, he on the way to this traditional shoot, some punk kid was shooting at him on the freeway.
Like on,
And,
with a pistol? Like with a gun?
Yeah, like with a gun.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was during all those riots
He
and stuff
lives
that were
near
happening.
Milwaukee.
Nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
He lives in like
Anyway.
a suburb near Milwaukee, so he was on the interstate around.
Well, you know, you got to really want to go to a 3D shoot if you're going to go through a hail of bullets. So hats off to Scott.
Yeah, no kidding. But anyway, after that, she's like, you should listen to his something like listen to his podcast or whatever. And so like I listened to who he is on the push, and I'm like, I just met that guy. Like whoa. And then I like look him up on Google, and I'm like, this guy's like super legit. And I'm like, I've got to go to more of these traditional archery shoots. So anyway.
Well,
I am so glad I found the traditional archery community, because I really enjoy the community. Like, it is just really fun, because there's a different level, I think, of camaraderie with it. You know, like in gun hunting, I'm not saying like you can't be a hunter and shoot a gun. You can, totally. You know, but a lot of times the gun hunting that we do in Wisconsin is more dependent on being a good shot and less on being a good hunter. And so then getting into the traditional archery community and hearing everybody's like all of their stories of archery, and like I feel like I'm just like a kid learning all of this stuff from all of these like super just experienced and wise people, and I really, really love it, because it's so much more like about building yourself as like to be a better person and a better archer and a better hunter, you know, and there's just so much sportsmanship in it. And so I've really loved it.
You said you've had two spiels that just really kind of frame traditional archery. I love where you're coming from, and you put it into words well. The traditional archery community, even 20 years ago, was like this. It was different, but it was just it was genuine, and you know, it was about building people up and stuff. It's definitely gone through some changes with this humongous influx of people. But I think the core, you know, as the core stays the same, it bleeds out to, you know, people coming in with kind of different ideas. But, you know, they see that, hey, this isn't about, you know, it isn't about me. It isn't about self-promotion. It's about enjoying the outdoors. And, you know, like you say, like, I'm not sure I could like be cool with missing a smoking buck and then seeing an owl show up, but you know that is part of it. It's like the whole package. So you frame it well.
Well, I don't know. I'm just happy to have found something, because like I've always been in more of like the artsy community, because I'm a musician, I'm an artist. And I guess my ideas of woodsmanship and really like what I want to do, like, I mean, I remember for my 10th birthday, like all I wanted was a knife. Like, you know, like all my other friends are still like playing with dolls. And I'm like, Mom, I just want a pocket knife, you know? And like, I got a pocket knife, I got a Coleman camping set, and I got a sleeping bag. And like, that's like my entire life has been a mix of like trying to balance like this side of me. And my sister-in-law asked me about this when she was visiting last week. She's like, so have you like always just kind of been into this like different kind of stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Like ever since I was little, like I've not wanted to do the typical girly stuff. I want to be in the woods. I want to be learning. I want to be like, I teach some like basic survival skills classes with like land navigation and, you know, like, you know, identifying plants and all that, all those kind of things. And it's like the reason I learned it is because from the time my brother and I were little, we were homeschooled. We would wake up early and do school as early as we possibly could, because we wanted to be in the woods by 10 o'clock every morning, running around, learning how to track animals, you know, learning, you know, we would buy Walmart moccasins because they were the slippers that you could get, you know, we would run around the woods in our Walmart moccasins and like pretend like we're just sneaking and stuff like it. Just, you know, like, so I feel like finally I've found a community that allows me to be my like quirky, weird self and be like, hey, good job. You know, whereas like when I'm in like the artsy community, everybody, they're like, you're really weird.
And then you met Steph, and you know that there's.
And then I met Steph, and all
not a lot of
the pieces came together, and I
boundaries.
realized, yeah.
like the boundaries are way out there.
Opened her up to a whole new world.
Yep.
You could see that shoot. So the trad shoot we went to together was the first time we ever met, and it was just, I was like, "You need to come to this shoot. It's my favorite one." And she's like, "Well, I'll ask my husband if I can do that for my birthday, 'cause it's my birthday week." So she shows up, and me and Steve, my fiance, were thinking like, "All right, she's never shot a course before. She just shoots in her backyard." And we start shooting with her, and we're like, "Oh shit, she's actually like pretty good. Like she's actually hitting these targets." We were just like really impressed with her shooting. But then, we're walking around talking to all these people, and you can tell that she's just jonesing to go like check out these other things. And because you go to a trad shoot, and it is just such a big like family, and everyone's so excited to hear how you did at your last like hunting season. Did you get anything, and share stories? But there's also like all these cool things to go do and look at that you can see her just kind of standing there like, "Are we going to shoot a course? Are we going to go look at that?"
Oh, it's a massive social event. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 50 people or 300 people or 600 people. I mean, you're there to shoot, but it's so much more of a social event because, just like you say, you're talking about hunting seasons and
yeah, you walk 5 feet and then you have another 45-minute conversation with someone else. And you're like, "I just got to go to the bathroom. I'm just trying to make it inside." Can't walk 10 feet.
Melody, you're the one that messaged me about having Barb on the podcast, weren't you?
Hey, I told you to keep that on the down low.
Oh, shoot. Well, I promise not to edit this out.
Seriously, Barb and Terry are two of my favorite people. Like, they are great. And Barb is a great storyteller.
Is she?
And
you did say that.
Like when she was telling me about how she got her spring turkey, she's so animated, and she gives such great detail, and she's great. She's got to be like, have you met Barb, Steph?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I've seen her at a few
5 feet even?
She's little. I don't know how.
She calls herself small but feisty.
She's small. Yeah, for sure.
And so then she's telling me all these like stories of her hunting and stuff, and I'm like, and she's a grandma, like her kids are close to my age, and I'm like, gosh, I want to be you when I grow up.
Yeah, you have to have almost a foot on her. She's cute. I like her. Terry's cool too.
Well, do you guys have any parting words, any wisdom you want to pass on?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, I bet you do. I'm gonna find out your mail route, and I am gonna subscribe all those people to like all the junk mail I can find.
Hey, support the Postal Service. Do what you gotta do.
What? This has been way fun. It's always
we got a little on a tangent there about.
No, that's good stuff.
Shoots and stuff.
No, that's good stuff. You always go into these podcasts, especially with people you don't know. You haven't talked to before, so it's always kind of a little apprehensive. But it's been a great conversation, and I'm glad I got you both on at the same time.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
So hopefully I didn't go on too many tangents.
It was actually a little more. It was more tame than I thought it was going to be. I thought Steph was just going to cut loose, but apparently that's only in texting.
Well, I ran out of beer a while ago, so.
Well, and she's been in the stand for like 5 days straight, so she's probably tired.
My face is just raw from the wind, and my eyes are just like can't even keep them open anymore. But I have to work tomorrow, and then I work Saturday. Otherwise, I'm off the rest of the day till the 12th. So I still got some time to shoot a buck. But I passed up a smaller one this morning, which I don't think I'll regret passing that one up. I don't want to fill my tag with something that doesn't get me like really excited and pumped up. I'm not going to shoot a buck just to shoot something. So hopefully I get a shot at a big one yet.
That's awesome. Well,
But
I appreciate both of you guys, both you gals, what you do and how you represent, and love your enthusiasm. I mean, that's super cool. Keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming on, telling your stories.
thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for
Hopefully it
having
wasn't
us.
too chaotic.
just getting together was the only problem.
Yeah, scheduling errors, that'll happen.
I should have my people get a hold of your people.
You should.
Just make sure they have the right
I'll let you
days.
know if I get that the Gene Wenzel leg wrestling thing arranged. I'll let you know when I have that all set up.
If you set that up, I want exclusive rights.
Probably sell tickets. It's gonna be like a pay-per-view, like UFC or something. It's gonna be good.
No, not gonna happen.
I don't
decline
know.
this
I think
event.
Gene's gonna win.
Decline this. Well, there would be some
It's not
tonnage.
about winning.
There'd be some tonnage to move.
Cool.
All right.
Well, maybe we should check in with the real world and see like who's winning the election.
You know what? I don't know if I
Oh,
want to get
God,
in the
I'm
real world.
scared.
Yeah, I don't know if I want the real world. We did a podcast last night with Aaron and Jim Eckhout. Super cool guy.
Yeah.
Jim's
Yeah,
super cool.
super legit dude there.
Yeah, and Blake and we started to talk about politics at the end. I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. I'm sick of it.
Well,
I
gosh,
know. I
can't
deliver
wait
so many of
tomorrow.
those flyers that I'm just. Ugh. We have
Tomorrow,
those. We deliver,
Instagram
like
will
at least
tell me
6
to vote.
political flyers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you were carrying some flyers, but yeah, Melody, you were mentioning about like everything going away tomorrow. I don't think it's going away for months. we got
No.
COVID and election results for the next 2 months to look forward to.
Yeah, I got to get through tomorrow, and then I can just go back to the woods and hide from it all again for a few more days. Pretend it doesn't exist.
Again, my hat's off to you, ladies. Appreciate what you do, and it's fun watching your success. I mean, Melody, you're new at this. It's fun watching your exuberance, and Steph, you seem like an old hand. So
Been around the
She's the
block
pro.
a couple times. No. I'm trying to think. I've gotten 4 deer with like longbows and recurves, but then I've gotten like pheasants, squirrels, and little stuff like that. But I need to get on an out-of-state hunt, or I drew a bear tag a few years ago, but we didn't see a single bear. So I guess it's more than that, because I've got 6 points now. So it's my first year with a longbow. I drew a bear tag, but I didn't get a shot. So hopefully I can do that like next year or the following year.
That'd be my number one. I want to go on a bear hunt. That's my top game. I want to pursue.
see, I find that really interesting that you're just like it's intriguing to me that as somebody has not hunted. I mean, it's just kind of rolling with you. Like it's not an issue at all.
With, are you saying with Melody, like killing stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like your favorite animal's a bear. I mean, that's cool. It's just intriguing to me.
She's a savage.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. She wants to whoop up on Gene Wenzel. I mean, my gosh.
Well, but I mean, I grew up on a farm, so like, you know,
Okay.
you just get used to
Okay.
things being the way they are. You know, you don't get attached to the animals.
Yeah.
My boy
Agreed.
was 3 or 4. We had 4 wiener pigs, and my buddy come over, and they're just little buggers in the pen there, and my buddy looks down at Elijah and says, "Hey, well, have you named them yet?" And he looks up at him and says, "These pigs ain't for naming, they're for eating."
That a boy.
So that's the way you're raised on a farm for sure.
There you go.
I'm at both ends of the spectrum, because I grew up on a farm too, and I always loved the cows, but I also understood it. And I raised a raccoon.
I would guess you would raise a raccoon. I would have
And
guessed
she
that.
rescued an owl.
Uh-oh. What happened? We might have lost her.
Maybe her phone died.
Oh, my phone died. Oh, no. I'm in trouble.
Anyway, Steph rescued an owl from the mud. She took a break from hunting to get out of her stand and rescue this little owl and bring it to a raptor center. So she's also very kind-hearted.
Dadgummit, I wish I knew my phone was dying. I'm in trouble now. Well, Melody.
Okay. Well, I would tell you any dirt I had on her now that she's gone, but I just don't have any. So
She's a cool dude.
she's cool.
Yep. Thank you for coming
Well,
on.
thanks for having me.
All right. You take care. We'll talk to you later.
Alrighty. See you, Rob.
Bye.